How's it going, everybody? So this is my first video I'm putting up. There's going to be a lot more of this. This was just kind of what I was doing today in the shop. Going forward, I'm going to try and do at least one video a week. More if I'm doing stuff. We run a small farm up here. We raise pigs and cows and everything. So we got a lot of infrastructure building going on this year, and I'm booked out solid for most of the summer when it comes to the shop. So stay tuned. I'll be trying to put up different stuff all the time. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me on YouTube or whatever. Again, I'm very new at this, so there's going to be some learning curves and we're going to figure it out. But hopefully y'all stick around with me. Thank you. Enjoy. All right, folks. So this is a beef hindquarter. The short loin has been taken off just because it's easier for me to get in and out of the cooler like that. This is off a mature Jersey. That's why there's a little bit of the yellow fat. That usually kind of happens when it comes to dairy animals. So we're just going to go ahead and break all this down and we'll get to it. A lot of people would say that Jerseys and other dairy animals aren't really great for meat. Honestly, my mind's been completely changed on them since I've been doing a lot of them. The fat's a little bit nicer on them, and honestly, they just make good steaks. It all depends on what you feed them. So we'll go ahead. First, we're going to take off the tri-tip. We're going to take off some of this fat right here so we can get at it. When you look at it, you can go ahead and you can see where the separation is. When it comes to all this, you're going to be able to actually see most of the separation parts. And after you've done it a little while, you'll actually be able to go, oh, all right, I know exactly what I'm doing here. So we're going to cut right there, pull down a little bit, expose that membrane, and just put a little leverage on it with just the tip of the knife. The knife's not doing a lot of the work. You're doing a lot of the work. With the leverage, you're really just using the tip. So, take that off. All right, so there's your tri-tip, plop that down. Next, we're gonna take the sirloin. So that's this chunk right here. You can do these bone-in or boneless. I prefer boneless just because it's a little bit easier on the saw and it's just a little easier to deal with. So you're gonna see right here, that's where the socket joint is. That's where the femur is gonna connect to the actual pelvis of the animal. So you're gonna put your knife right in there, make a line straight across, and just follow it all the way over. You're gonna feel the rest of the femur in there. And part of the pelvis, you can cut right through. My next step, you're gonna follow that down like that. You really just make all your first incision cuts. I do apologize if there's a bit of an echo in here. We got pretty high ceilings. Come up, follow the tailbone. All right, so now that we have all our incision cuts, I like to come back around and cut there, loosen up the top. Again, leverage is your friend. If you do the right cuts, you can pull most of this off. I'll spin around so you can see a little more. And just start working it down. Get as much meat off as you can. You're gonna come back through and you're gonna clean up this pelvis anyway. So if there's still a little bit left, it's not a huge deal. All right, so there's the sirloin. Next part that I take off is the round tip. So that's going to be this chunk right here. Again, I like to just clean it up a little bit. That way you're gonna be able to see a lot more where you're cutting. So the way I usually start, this is the knuckle, basically where the knee is. So your knee is right here. You're gonna cut right above it. Open up that joint, come down a little bit, come down over here, and you're gonna follow this line right here. Now what I like to do, just take my finger, open it up, and split that membrane. Now you can see, now let's try to get the angle right. There is an opening right there, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. And then that is the second membrane. Open up that one, use your finger. And then you're just gonna connect all these cuts you made. Open up that one. Open that up a little bit more. And then you just start pulling down on it. And if you've done it correctly, once you get to about here, you can get your hook in there, just pull the whole thing down. Nice clean bone. There's your round tip. Next, you're gonna take the top round off. So you're gonna take this whole bone off with it. So the top starts right about here. Open that up. You don't wanna go in too deep because then you're gonna start hitting the eye around and nick a little bit there, but that's all right. And then I like to come around here and just follow this bone down. Now, it looks like I'm starting to take it off. This is just gonna be the top round cap. So, I'll move you over a little bit. So here is the main muscle up here. You're gonna open this up. Do it on this side so you can see a little bit better, hopefully. Bear with me, folks. This is my first time really filming, so we'll get better, I promise. I'm just gonna open that up. A little more as you go. And you're gonna come down. Right here is where the edge of the pelvis is. So you're gonna come down here. And just, as you cut, pull. All right, so let's get that angle right. If you look in right here, there's a little tendon that connects the femur to the pelvis. So what you're gonna do is cut that and everything around it, and it's gonna completely loosen up that whole piece off the animal. Put you back up there. So, open that up, and you're just gonna take your knife and follow that blade down. In here, there's a little nick, or not a nick, a little piece of bone that juts up, and you're just gonna follow that bone all the way around until pull that off. So that's the top round. There's your pelvis. Put that there for now. Next, you're looking at the eye round. Again, you can see where everything connects and everything comes apart. I'm gonna start right there and just kind of start working it down. Stays dry around. All right. And the only primal really left is the bottom, and this comes off real easy because there's really not much connected at this point. So you're gonna come down, you're gonna follow that line down, and just start working it. Come off the bone. There's bottom. The only thing left up here on the hook is going to be your shank. So this customer just wants it ground, but what you can do is you can also make cross cuts out of it, which are good for basically ossobuco, stuff like that. But we're just going to clean this up, take this off, and I like to take the heel off first. This way. I like to take this bottom femur bone off just because it makes dealing with the saw a little bit easier. Once you make that cut, you're going to see the two notches of that bone, and you're just going to continue to work it. You don't need a saw to do this. You just gotta get your knife in there and work it around. Follow through. All right, so there's one bone. Then you're gonna come up, lower the down a little bit, and there's a little bit of hair on there, so we'll cut that off. That way it doesn't end up in the grind. Come over here. So there's your bone. So you're just going to work around that. Start up here. Make the first incision cuts. And just work your way down. So this tendon is the only thing keeping this on this hook. So you don't want to cut that right away. You want to work all the way around it. You come around on this side, do the exact same thing. Work the knife down, follow that bone. On this side again. So now you are completely disconnected. And you just cut that. All you're left with is that bone. So what I'm going to do is I will go through, clean up the bones, everything that's going to be ground. We'll clean them up, get them going, and then when you come back, we'll just start cutting primals. All right, so first we're gonna start off with the top round. So I start by taking this pelvis off. I usually just start over here at the end. This is where your flex knife kind of comes in handy because you can just follow that bone and just work around it. This is, again, you want to keep as much meat on the actual primal as you can. So there's that. So we'll go through and clean this up real quick. It's always nice to have an apron because then you can take everything and use yourself as kind of a backstop to get a little more leverage. Go through, clean out this tailbone area. You don't want all the sinew and everything in your grind, so you kind of want to go through that a little bit. Clean that up. So on this other side is what they call the butcher's cut. This is going to be your oyster steak. Again, super easy to get out. Got a good flex knife. You can just kind of work around it. to do is come around this backside and just work my knife around that. Open it up a little bit. Now you can see that's opened up and you can basically just pull it out. A couple more cuts. Now you got a nice clean pelvis bone. Toss that in rendering. And the customer does not want this, and I am not one of those butchers that takes home nice lunch snacks for himself. All this is going to the customer, so we're just gonna toss this in the grind. Now this customer wants their top round steaks cut in 1.25 inch steaks. So we're gonna come around. If you look at this, you can see there's multiple different muscle groups. This is your main clod that you're gonna be dealing with. So you can look, and there's a membrane right there, and that's where I start. Just kind of use your breaking knife, push down, cut right across. Go through, clean some of the fat up a little bit, because you don't want all of the fat in your grind, or you do, you leave it in. Some of this drier stuff, the dirty parts, and that's just blood, stuff like that. Small bit of a rind from it hanging. I break all my beef down to 1/8. One, because it's a little easier for me to handle, and two, I only hang my beef for about a week. So breaking it down into 1/8 makes it a little bit, everything chills down and softens up a little bit quicker. So now, I basically just start cleaning up. You're gonna take this section right here, cut around that, goes in the grind. I don't like super fatty top round steaks, so I like to clean a lot of this up. Now this section right here, there is a vein that runs through this. So I'll just come through, clean that out. You don't want to be chewing on that. And then just clean up this back part. You want to keep some fat on, but again, you don't want to keep a ton. Top rounds are a real nice broiling steak. I wouldn't suggest toss them on the grill unless you got real strong cheekbones, but clean this up a little bit. Last little bit of dry blood. All right. So now you got a nice clean top round. I always square it off right at the top. Up a little bit. All right, so these first couple steaks, get in frame there. These are what you'd call your shortcuts. They're gonna be a little more tender. You can usually pull 3 off. So those are what you call shortcut top steaks. And the rest, just kind of gotta go through it. And then that's usually about how much I leave. So this is good if you're doing stew meat. Top rounds are still fairly tender. I use top rounds for stir fry, things like that as well. You don't really want to use it for kebabs or anything like that. But that's what you're looking at for top rounds. Just chunk the rest of that up. Next, we'll put down the tri-tip. This customer does not want the tri-tip. So what I usually do is I'll just clean it up and I'll usually just end up tossing it into tips. This customer wants their sirloin half steaks, half tips. I don't know where most people stand on it. I usually consider the tri-tip as part of the sirloin, just because of where it's located. On all my cut sheets, tri-tip is in that area, just to make life a little bit easier. Go around, take the breaking knife. I'm gonna open that up a little bit. You can just work it down. A little bit of meat left on there. Let's go through, open that up, good to go. Okay, so now you can look at the grain of that. You can see it kind of swaps grain. Up here, the grain's moving in this direction, and over here, it's kind of moving in this direction. So this is definitely the more tender part, so what I'm gonna do is just take that, chunk it in the grind. And you just go through. Steak tips. All right, big boy. There's your sirloin. So you can kind of see what it's already gonna look like, but we're gonna clean it up a little bit. So this section right here, this is actually the bottom of the round tip. That goes over the edge of the sirloin. You're gonna take that off. I know some people will take the round tip off first, before the sirloin. I don't see a problem with it. That's just not how I was trained. So I'll usually just take that, chunk it up, toss it in the grill. So you're gonna take this big fatty section right here. This is the part that's actually exposed in that hip bone that you're cutting around. So we're gonna clean that up. And just work everything around. If you're trimming stuff and there's some meat that's coming off your fat, it's okay. Toss it in the grind. You can never have too much burger. If it's too much fat, you can go through and you can clean it up. All right, I like to take this chunk out. Just gonna cut down a little bit. Bring it up. And again, leverage, it's your friend. I like to take this little piece off. Some people don't, and that's fine. I do. It's a little bit more of a sinewy piece. See, there's a little bit more stuff in there. It makes great burger. All right, around to this back side, just clean all this up a little bit. Clean up some of this fat, make it a little more uniform. All right, so now you have a cleaned up sirloin. We're gonna square it off at the end, chunk that in the grind. So very similar to the top round. These first couple steaks are what is known as shortcut sirloins. Just cleaning that up. As you can see, nice little steak, not a lot of the tip. Usually or cap, usually I just chunk that off. Nice little sirloin steak there. Again, you usually get about 2. You can see a little bit more of the cap on that one. Now this customer wants half and half. So cut one more, seeing as we already got some out of the tri-tip. Now those are your sirloin steaks. These are your shortcuts. Toss those on the tray. So now you got this rest of the piece left. If you look at it, there's a little bit more sinew there where it connects to everything. So we're gonna go ahead and trim this out. I usually pull back using the edge of my knife as both cutting and also just as a little bit of an anchor point. Go through it. We'll just clean this up. I got some tips. What do we got? All right. So this is the round tip. Like I said before, there's your kneecap. So what I like to do, grab it right around here, come around this edge, just work that kneecap right out. Take this chunk of fat off. Now this customer basically wants 1¼ inch steaks out of the whole round. The round tip is decent grilling steaks. I would probably do it more as an oven roast. That's just me personally. Again, you can also make tips. They're not gonna be the greatest tips in the world, but you can make tips. And also stir fry, or again, stew meat. Another thing you can do, if you look at it, you can see there's multiple different muscle groups in here. So you can also seam all this out. Again, make tips. You can do fry steaks, pound them out, cut them thin. All right, so that is cleaned up. I always start at the small end. And again, we're just gonna square it up. Toss that in the grind. 1¼ inch. So that is what you're looking at. All right. So this is the eye round. If you've ever been to Subway and gotten the roast beef, this is what you're eating. I am not a huge eye round fan. Just kind of is what it is. It's an okay oven roast. Again, this is not something that you want to toss on the grill. You're not going to have fun. You're going to see it at the grocery store, and it's going to be priced fairly cheap, and that is for a very certain reason. Again, this is a very tough piece. But again, the customer asked for 1¼ inch steaks, and I am in the customer service business. So, another good solution for the eye round is what's called minute steaks. That's what I call them, at least. And you would take this and you would slice it very thin, fry it up in your pan for steak and cheese, stuff like that. And again, we're just gonna go through, clean it up, square it off at the end. An example of those minute steaks is you're just gonna have a bunch of packages, something about that thin. And again, season them up, toss them in the pan, go to town. But they would like 1.25 inches, so that is what they will get. Toss the rest in there. Not awful, a little tough, but that is what they're looking for. So they made a very wise decision on this next one. This is the bottom round. This is a good pot roast, kind of roast. Bottom round is one of those weird cuts, or weird primals that the grain actually changes the further you go down. So this is just gonna be grind, but I'm actually gonna go through it as if they were cutting it into steaks, just to show you guys. We'll clean it up a little bit, take all this fat off. Come in over on this side, open that up. A little bit of meat in there, we'll clean that up. All right, so what I like to do with this, right here, is a super aggressive membrane. This is, like, they used to make bowstrings out of this stuff. Like, it is a very hard, very tough membrane. So what I like to do, get right to where your edge is gonna be, cut that right off. Now you have exposed meat there. Come up top, do the same thing. You don't want to hack through it, but what you can do, get an edge, pull this to the side, work your knife down. Now if there's a little extra meat on that, flatten it out, take a knife, and just work it down. Take all that meat off, leave all the sinew. That. And you're left with fairly clean. I wouldn't bother with that. Not worth it, not worth the hassle. I take a lot of liberties when it comes to the bottom round, mostly because, again, it's not gonna be your best steak in the world, but everybody eats burger. I like to square it up. Back end's good, decent fat content. So if you look at it, up here, all the grain is moving this way. So when you start cutting your steaks, you're gonna start going like this. But if you look, as you go down, the grain starts going this way. So, I always start at the wide end, face your cuts, and if you didn't see it, there is a separate muscle group inside of the bottom round. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna basically cut right to the edge of that muscle group. So now you just got a little bit of that left. I just like to take that off. Because now your grain has changed. So now when you look at it, all your grain's going this way. So if you continue this cut, what you're gonna end up with is something that's really stringy and not great. So you're gonna go through the whole process again, face it off. And now, when you look at it, everything's cross-cut and it's gonna be a little more tender. Tender being, Again, I know a decent amount of people that get bottom round steaks and they seem happy with them somehow, but here we go. So that's what you're looking at there. Again, this is gonna be all grind because they're good people. But, just wanted to show you guys. So when we come back, I'll show you the packages and everything you get out of that, all laid out. All right, everybody. So here's everything packed up, ready to go. There are your tips. Getting your sirloin steaks. Came out really nice. All your top rounds. All your round steaks. Those do turn out really nice. Your eye rounds. And then all the bones after they're all cut up and packaged. And that's about it. So thank you guys for watching, and there'll be more to come. Thank you.